So now some exploration with watercolor soluble crayons. These crayons are called Aquarelle or water-soluble crayons, and the lovely thing about them is that you can use them as you would a pencil crayon, and then when you wet them, either by dipping the nib into some water and actually drawing directly with the pencil, so that you get a sort of watery color effect just by dipping and even mixing colors together. You can get these effects. You can use your cloth to smooth or rub them. A paper towel would work as well, but you can use them directly, or otherwise you can use your paintbrush. So as Elena did in the previous gradation, what I'm going to do is to use one of your pieces of practice sheet, and I've created the potential for a watercolor scale. So I've decided that I'm going to use the pink tonalities, and I'm going to explore the possibilities with you with them. So I'm going to use some of the dark tones first of all, and I'm going to go, as Elena did, from dark to light, so that I am sort of shading. You don't have to fill the whole thing in, but use the sort of dark tones. I'm going to use some alizarin crimson and make that even more intense. And I love the idea that you can sort of mix the colors together as well. You can use them sort of more graphically. Experiment with color mixing. So that you can put down a variety of colors. Now I'm going to be thinking about leaves and roses at a later stage, so I want to put in some of these green tones and see what happens when I mix them together. Pressing very lightly and then heavily. If you haven't used these brushes before, then you just need to moisten them and dry them, because they've got some size in them which we want to remove. And then you'll notice that by just wetting them, you start to get these really lovely watery effects. If you wanted something to be more intense, you can go back and sort of work back into the color. You can dry your brush and sort of work with the drier brush as well. And just merge them and enjoy the sort of serendipitous colors that begin to emerge. You can use the back of your brush if things are sort of running and you want to stop them, just by using the back of your brush to even sort of draw little lines and things into your work as you're going along, and just merging them and blending color together. Using your paper towel or the rag, you can sort of also get interesting effects by dabbing and sort of drawing back again with the crayon. And sort of going back into it with the colour. Just working the colour through. So it's a beautiful technique, and you know, the possibilities for drawing and painting with the aquarelles are just lovely. A lot of watercolor artists will leave parts of the paper white so that the light shows through. So don't feel this need to cover everything, but to sort of leave some of the white areas. So to develop my piece, you'll remember that I am using the letter, this letter that is 70 years old now, with its stain from the flower that was put inside it when my mother sent this letter to her sister with one of the flowers that was in the bouquet that she had sent when my twin sister and I were born. And then I have another letter from my mother, and this was for another birthday, and I just loved the roses. My mother was a passionate rose grower, and so in my work I want to combine both the letter and this image as well. So that's where all these lovely sort of pink tonalities of the watercolor are going to come in. So here is my drawing a little bit further ahead now, and you'll notice that what I've done is that I have taken the masking tape and I've made a border all the way around. This is so that your watercolor paper doesn't buckle, and when you peel this off you're going to get this lovely white border that goes all the way around. So I had the border, but I've actually cut into it because I like the idea that the paper of the letter is going to overlap, and similarly here the stem of the rose is sort of making you enter the composition, and down here at the bottom there's that opening as well, so that the letter seems to be overlapping the border. I'm going to start with the rose because it's something that the colors are so gorgeous, and I'm looking at the postcard as I'm going along, and I'm wanting to sort of look at some of these dark centers, and so I'm just sort of laying down the crayon and a little bit of an outline as well into this. But I want you to really enjoy these crayons and sometimes make them quite light and other times darker. Just remember that if it's too dark you can always blot it. I hope you can see this clearly, so having some of these dark areas, mixing the tones together, then making it sort of quite light. Remember those white spaces that are just going to make your painting sort of really shimmer and stand out, so not to cover everything. And starting with the water, change your water if it's starting to get muddy. Use your rag for cleaning your brush. So being able to blend these colors together. It's so sensual. Sometimes you don't even want to put in color. You can just sort of pick up a little bit and draw with the water. So I'm liking these little white spaces, and they might work for you too. For the background, remembering that this letter is going to be blue, the air letter card is blue, I want to sort of think quite carefully about what the color background is. So maybe I'll just start with this very light blue to begin to fill in the background. Now there isn't quite the blue that I want, so I'm going to have to use something a little bit more turquoise. And turn your work around as well as you're working so that you're sort of beginning to see it from different vantage points. So there are folds here in the envelope, and so I'm going to work up some of the tone and then keep this very light. And because it's blue, it just doesn't have to be one blue, so I'm going to add some tone here, some contrast, a little bit of shadow. And then use my brush and wash it. I'm going to use the larger brush to spread this. And I even sort of quite like the granular effect as well. And the way that that pink is just beginning to blur into the blue. So there's the start. And I look forward to seeing what you all do with your colors. You can see a little bit more closely the mixing of colors together, and then those little white highlights, and then the washing of the color so that it isn't intense everywhere. You can go back into it afterwards and work into it. So enjoy this and look forward to what you're all going to produce.